Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would sit down and chat with you guys and gals about protein, but let me get a sip of my water first. Get my radio voice going and let's talk about this. You know, you see this nonsense, and I feel like people don't bother to look at science. You know, when you say protein doesn't get stored as body fat, people say anything eaten in excess will store as body fat. Yeah, but that's not true. You're full of it. That's just simply not true. Almost, and I want to be clear, almost all of the fat on your body, according to research in the metabolic ward, came from fat that you ate. Now, does this mean that just eating a low-fat diet will automatically mean that you never gain body fat? No, because you're still eating some fat. You can't eat zero fat or you will die. Right? We have essential fat requirements. They're ALA and LA. So omega-3 and omega-6, those are your two essential ones. And you can make all the other omega-3 and 6 out of those. Now, people will argue that's a side point. People will say, but it doesn't do it efficiently. It doesn't have to. Okay? It doesn't have to. We don't need that much of the things that they convert into. But it's not backwards compatible the other direction. So all of your polyunsaturated fats, particularly your omega-3s, they work up a chain of about 5 different ones you can create, but it doesn't work backwards. When you go through those sequences from the ALA towards the others, the most developed being EPA and DHA, you can't reverse it the other direction. So again, ALA is the only essential one, but I digress. Back over to the point. No, all of the fat that you have on your body came from fat that you ate. This is what the data shows. Again, including carbon isotope testing. Anytime carbohydrate stores fat, it is only around your organs. It is visceral fat. We don't really see subcutaneous fat, the fat under your skin, coming from carbohydrates. Every single last gram of it that is under your skin came from fat that you ate. All of it. That is what has been found in the metabolic ward, specifically in humans. I don't care about rats. I don't care about cows. I don't care about Homo erectus, Neanderthal. We are talking specifically modern Homo sapien. That is the case. So when we come over and we start talking about protein, people say, but you know, protein can be stored as fat. You'll even see some doctors say that, and then you'll see experts in the field say, yeah, no, dude, you're wrong. Because you'll occasionally even see an MD say that. This is why you have to have multiple experts and specialties in a field, right? Because even doctors get it wrong. I mean, there's some of the quack doctors who've sold 1 million books or 3 million books that every medical doctor I know calls them a quack. I'm just like, yeah, he's just making up science. It's not real. Not actually based on what happens in the human body. Doctor view. Yeah. With the autophagy and the fasting. And I like fasting, but all that other part is nonsense. All right, I digress. But yeah, I've seen at least one MD get up and say this on international television, and then of course the experts correct him and say, yeah, no, that's not true. It doesn't actually happen in the lab when we test it. It doesn't happen. Okay? Now, people say, but doesn't a lot of protein get converted into glucose? Yes, it does. Right? The gluconeogenesis cleaves that nitrogen out. That's why we talk about nitrogen retention. That's the difference between amino acids and carbohydrates in terms of what is physically in them, in terms of actual atoms. The nitrogen. Okay? Nitrogen is specific to amino acids and proteins, not in carbohydrate. That's the difference. It's carbohydrates. CHO. So, yeah, it does. But that's an energy expensive conversion. In other words, if you are converting carbohydrate from protein, you are using calories doing that, first of all. That's an expensive conversion. But then we come back over to the other point. Only 1% of the fat in your body, according to the data, has ever come from carbohydrate. Are we talking about getting enough carbohydrate from protein for this to happen? hypothetically possible, but guess what? They've not been able to make it happen in the lab, or else, again, the carbon isotope testing, they can test the carbon of large amounts of protein they feed you and see if any of it ends up in your body fat. They can test for that carbon. None of the carbon from the protein, when it's consumed even in large amounts, none of it ends up in your body fat. Therefore, we can conclude that those atoms that made up the protein simply do not get stored as adipose tissue in humans. Doesn't seem to occur. There's a hypothetical extreme pathway that could exist, but they've not been able to actually make it happen measurably. This is nonsense. And in fact, we come over to the point of even carbohydrates rarely, to a significant degree, contribute to body fat. And again, they only store in certain places. They don't store through your entire body. So when you see people talk about carbohydrate and then, gaining fat in certain places, well, if you can see it, then it didn't come from carbohydrates, because it's only deep internal, not this stuff under the skin. So again, that's nonsense, right? So your order of priority, even when you look at it, your body will store different types of fat at different ratios. And people don't grasp that either. They haven't looked into it to see which fats that you eat increase fat oxidation the most on a calorie per calorie basis. Fat is not even equal, right? And it's not even equal. So even when we say, yeah, saturated fats store the easiest, but it varies even from saturated fat to saturated fat. Monounsaturated fats, it's pretty varied too. Polyunsaturated fats in general store the least easy. But when you say that, people will say, what? Are you saying you can't store them? No, I didn't say that at all. But your body's going to preferentially burn those over saturated fat. That is what it's going to preferentially burn. All right. So ultimately, yeah, the saturated fat you eat is most likely to end up stored as body fat. But if you're not in a calorie surplus, even that doesn't usually really happen unless we're losing muscle tissue. Potentially from not enough protein. That has happened in the lab. So again, ludicrous idea. And in the cases, it's like, I just wish people would go spend 10 minutes reading. And by reading, go look at actual research, look at data, look at what's happening inside clinical trials, look at what's happening in the metabolic ward where they're measuring it directly in the human body to see what happens when we feed people things, right? Too many people get their nutrition info from conspiracy vlogs, gurus, other people, instead of just going and looking at the data. And I'm even telling you, I'm just a guy up here giving you information. Go double check this data. Go look deep into the science, look into the metabolic ward. Like you should be double checking that if you care. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.